All right, hey, what's up guys? Gratuitous here, continuing off of our last video about what is a VST. This video is just going to describe the differences between VST3 and VST2. Now, I'm not going to get into like the super technicals when it comes to going to Steinberg's change history, like their change log. I'll talk about that in the video. I'm more talking about as a beat maker from our point of view, you know, like how does VST3 benefit us? All right, so the first thing, if you want to learn about VST3 and the change log, okay, you can come to Google or whatever search engine you use and just go VST3 change log. You can go to change history and you can read all of this stuff as you can see here. This is a change log. Here's all the different versions. I don't want to talk so much about the super technical coding aspect of it. So when we use a VST3 plugin and how we can tell if a plugin is VST2 or VST3 is you click up here in the gear cog. As you can see, I told you in the last video that the Fruity plugins didn't have the gear cog. They do, but they don't have the VST wrapper settings, all right? So you can see that they both have the plugin editor. Again, look in the top left, but it doesn't have this one, all right? And so what it's saying here is VST 3.7.3. For a VST3 plugin, we are able to right click. At least in FabFilter plugins, we can right click. So I'm just going to kind of carry on from the last video. Again, we talked about a VST, right? There's also the VST-I, which is your instruments. Generally, a VST is like your effect. The VST-I is like the generator. But we're going to go VST2 and VST3. So when we install a VST2 file, and again, this was, you know, the old version of VST. Not to say that it's like it's worse, it's just that VST3 is just newer. Now, the first thing I want to say is that these are installed with an exe file, right? An executable file. So if you want to install FabFilter plugins, right, you are given an exe file that you install onto your computer. And my recommendation is always keeping this exe file around, the executable file. Doesn't matter if it's VST2 or VST3. Okay, this is just going to save you some time. And then my recommendation is to keep your license around somewhere close so that if you ever format or buy a new computer and you're switching over, the installation process is very, very fast. Okay, so VST2, it installs in a DLL file. All right, VST3 installs in a VST3 file. Now, I want to talk about folder location. Okay, so they are both in program files, but the difference is the VST2 installs it into VST plugins. And in the last video, I didn't put an S at the end, I don't think. Okay, but this is by default. You actually have the flexibility to move this DLL file wherever you want. And again, I talked to you about this in the last video. I had my own music folder, right? And if you want to learn more about my music folder, I do have a course on this. It's called A Specific Music Production Folder. And if you use FL Studio, this is just how I've chosen to back up my music and keep it organized. Over my years, I've experienced missing files. It's been annoying, and I just follow this folder structure. So again, I told you there is inside my music production folder, I have a folder called Sounds. Inside of Sounds, I'd have drum kits. Okay, let's just go drum K again, and then VST. Now, inside of VST, I would create another folder, and let's just call it like Fab, all right, for FabFilter. So I create it like this, and inside my VST folder, let's say my company of choice at this moment, let's say is FabFilter, whatever company that you are choosing, you know, if you like their plugins, I recommend creating a folder for them. You store that executable file, and if you want like your license, or your license could be close by, okay, but we can store this DLL file in here, and then we can set up FL Studio. And I'll show you that quickly. In FL Studio, you can hit F10, you go to File, and then you go to Manage Plugins, all right? Then you get the plugin manager. You can add in all your different folders right here, all right? You can see that it's pulling in from the program files VST plugins, and see how it's written with capital V, capital P. We also have the x86, which is the 32-bit, which we are no longer, you should no longer be using. But again, the problem is if you like a plugin and the developer hasn't updated in many, many years, then you're still on the 32-bit for that plugin. It's not bad. It's just that with innovation and, you know, performance, we're wanting that 64-bit. And sometimes companies were even installing in program files Steinberg, then VST plugins. But you can see right here the common files. But from my experience so far, it seems as if VST3 has to live within the common files folder. Again, that's in program files, common files. Before the VST2 version, we were able to bring that anywhere, okay? So again, we install from an executable file, whether it's VST2 or VST3. The VST2 installs the DLL, okay? VST3 installs a VST3 file. They're both installed in program files. Again, if you check out the last video, I told you if it's x86, that is 32-bit, and we don't want 32-bit. We want our plugins just to be in the regular program files, okay? Not x86, okay? Now, because it's DLL, we were able to move it wherever we want, and what I did over the years is I got organized in my own music folder, okay, with my sounds and my VSTs. But now with VST3, it kind of throws a little bit of a curveball. You can't get as organized like that. However, I would still keep the structure. I would still keep the executable file and the license around. But when you install your VST3 plugins, again, it's in program files. In VST2, you could install it into the default location, but I always like to kind of put it in my own. But again, with VST3 in program files, now it's called common files. And then within common files, there is a folder called VST3. And this is where you will see all of your plugins, okay? And I'll quickly show you that. All right, so here is the folder. And as you can see, here's program files. This is the 64-bit version of programs. And then there's the x86. In both of these, there is a common files folder. Okay, if we click into that, press V, and as you can see, here is some FabFilter VST3 plugins. So that's where it installs, okay? All right, so again, the question is which, VST version should you install? Because again, when you install this executable file, many times it asks you, do you want to install the 32-bit version of VST2, the 64-bit version of VST2? Do you want to install VST3? Again, there's other formats such as like the RTAS and stuff, and audio units like I talked about in the last video. So for me personally, I install both VST3 and VST2. When I'm making beats within FL Studio, I'm going to be using the VST3 version because FL Studio allows us to use VST3. It's the newest, updated, and that's awesome. But I also use some software where they're outdated when it comes to VST, my video editor. So I have to use a VST2 version of that plugin if I want to use it in video editing. Does that make sense? So if you're just making beats in FL Studio, my suggestion to you is install the VST3, try it out. Is it good? Does it perform well? Well, then good, you're good to go. If it's getting buggy, because in the early stages of VST3, sometimes plugins would be buggy, but it's been quite a while since it's been out. It's quite stable, I guess, like and healthy now. So VST3 has performed very good for me in FL Studio. But again, if you're editing videos and stuff, then you're going to have to install both VST3 and VST2. So let's say you want to upgrade your computer let's say you just bought a new computer, you want to transfer everything over. If you were organized before you purchased your parts or before you purchased this new computer, you should have all your executable files in your VST folders in each company vendor, right? So for FabFilter, Leonard Digital, right? Arturia, X for Records for Serum, and Arturia was for Pigments. And then inside those folders, you just have the executable file. If you want, you have the license. Sometimes things are a little bit weird when it comes to certain companies and they have special software, like in addition to the VST. Sometimes they have like an activation software. So in that case, the license stuff doesn't fully pertain, as well as the executable, because it's all through their software. But I'm talking more about, I guess, back in the day, and for a lot of plugins still, because a lot of plugins don't have that type of software. This executable way is going to save you so much time. Okay. All right. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions about learning FL Studio, I'm an FL Studio trainer. If you visit my website, I have a membership. You can access all 26 of my FL Studio courses. Or if you would like to start slow, you can download my free book called 5 Keys to a Successful Beat. Just go to itsgratuitous.com/5 keys. Again, you guys always feel free to reach out to me or listen to my podcast, Music Production Made Simple. It's where I keep you guys updated. If you have any other questions about FL Studio that you would like me to cover, you feel free to send me an email on my website on the contact form there. And again, my goal here is to keep releasing videos from old blog posts on my website. I'm going through all my old posts. There's at least 200 of them. And this one is actually number 2. Okay, so I'll talk to you guys in the next video.